Iran is currently in a very fragile and vulnerable position. It's suffering from many economic problems, and its military capabilities are not at the highest level. So when Iran was confronted with Israeli attacks, it had to respond in a way that wouldn't escalate the situation beyond its ability to control. At the same time, the Iranian response needs to deal with the Israeli objectives, which, according to Netanyahu, focus on rolling back Iran's nuclear capabilities. This means the Israeli role will revolve around the position of attack, while the Iranian role will revolve around the position of defense. In other words, while Israel needs to take the initiative and attack, Iran only needs to hold on to its position and defend. This dynamic gives Iran the opportunity to tailor its attacks based on Israel's attacks. As a result, if the Iranian leadership assesses that an American attack is not imminent, it can avoid triggering one by refraining from hitting American bases in Iraq or elsewhere in the Gulf. If the United States were to intervene against Iran, however, the destruction within the country could escalate. Without direct American intervention, it will be very difficult for the Israelis to completely eradicate Iran's nuclear program, except perhaps through covert espionage that we don't know about. Even without American involvement, however, it will still be hard for Iran to stop the Israeli attacks or quickly pursue nuclear weapons if the entrances to its enrichment facilities are destroyed, which could delay Iran's ability to obtain such weapons. Israeli control over Iranian airspace also does not help Iran in this regard. Without stopping the attacks, the ongoing destruction will put pressure on the Iranian people and leadership, causing greater suffering for the country and potentially bolstering the case for a diplomatic solution. As for a diplomatic solution, if the United States intervenes, the Iranian leadership and people might reject negotiations with Trump and instead turn to other nations. Trump, for example, has suggested that Russia could mediate between Iran and Israel. Russia has a strong relationship with Iran and a functioning relationship with the Israelis, especially since Israel did not put sanctions on Russia over the war in Ukraine. But that's the case if the United States intervenes. If it doesn't, and Israeli strikes fail to destroy the nuclear facilities, Trump may pressure Netanyahu to halt the attacks and return to the negotiations. Public opinion in Israel and the United States could also play a role in pressuring Netanyahu. In such a situation, Trump and Netanyahu might use direct attacks to demonstrate to the Iranian government that they have the ability to inflict serious damage, making negotiations a means for Iran to halt that damage. Now, if the goal is regime change in Iran, much could depend on the methods Netanyahu chooses and how the Iranian people respond. Assassinations of the regime's leaders, for example, could reduce the central government's grip on power and embolden local movements, potentially triggering an internal revolt, or even several of them. Alternatively, it could unite the Iranians around their government, rallying the population to defend the country against external aggression, especially given Iran's long history of dealing with foreign interventions and invasions. In such a case, Trump and Netanyahu could find themselves in a longer, more costly war that drains their strategic resources and damages their political positions. The possibility of such a scenario may also increase the appeal of diplomacy from the perspective of both sides, as mentioned earlier.